In the vast humming silence of the meridian dawn, a colossal transport vessel slicing through the infinite blackness of space, Cole Thatcher lay in his narrow bunk, staring at the dim glow of the ceiling panels. The ship was 3 weeks into its grueling 6-month journey to Haven's Reach, a distant colony where dreams of new beginnings flickered like distant stars. Cole, a rugged human maintenance engineer with calloused hands and a heart scarred by earthly betrayals, had signed on to escape the ruins of his past, a failed relationship that left him hollow, a career stalled in the suffocating bureaucracy of Earth's megacities. Sleep eluded him that night, as it often did, his mind replaying the echoes of arguments with his ex, her words like venom. "You're too ordinary, Cole. I need someone who reaches for the stars." Little did he know, the stars were about to reach for him. At precisely 3 a.m. ship time, the emergency chime shattered the quiet, insistent, piercing tone that jolted Cole upright, his pulse racing. Who could it be at this hour? The crew quarters were sealed, protocols strict to maintain order amid the isolation. He stumbled to the door panel, his bare feet cold against the metallic floor, and pressed the release. The door hissed open, revealing a figure that made his breath catch in his throat. There stood Sira, the enigmatic Turek environmental specialist he'd glimpsed only in passing during briefings. Her species, the Turek, were humanoid allies from a shimmering world of iridescent oceans, their skin a canvas of shifting colors that betrayed emotions like living auroras. But tonight, Sira was a vision of distress, her uniform smeared with viscous coolant, her lithe form trembling, and her skin flickering erratically from pale yellows to sickly greens, dark patches blooming like bruises across her exposed arms and neck. "Cole." "Human," she gasped, her voice a melodic whisper laced with urgency, her large, luminous eyes deep violet pools, wide with desperation. "I need your help, please." The words hung in the air, charged with vulnerability. Cole blinked, his mind struggling to process the sight. He'd heard of Turek sensitivity. Their biology reacted violently to certain chemicals, turning minor exposures into agonizing ordeals. A rupture in the environmental systems bay, she explained breathlessly, had doused her in toxic coolant. The medbay officer was in cryosleep, her own quarters decontamination unit offline due to the very leak she'd been repairing. And now, with time ticking like a bomb, she needed immediate cleansing, thorough, precise, with water pressure and temperature controls that only a human-configured shower could provide. But there was more. The contamination had seeped into unreachable spots on her back, between her sensitive shoulder ridges, and behind her pointed ears. She couldn't do it alone. "Can you please clean me, human?" she pleaded, her ears flattening against her skull in a gesture of profound Turek distress, a sign that pierced Cole's defenses like an arrow. Shock rippled through him, a flush creeping up his neck. This was beyond protocol, beyond decency. "Sira, this isn't right. We're colleagues, not. I mean, there must be another way." His voice faltered, eyes darting to the corridor, empty and echoing. But as he looked closer, he saw the tremors in her hands, the way her skin pulsed with pain, each flicker a silent scream. Turek dermal irritation could escalate to excruciating torment within the hour, leading to scars or worse. Her plea wasn't just words. It was a lifeline thrown into the void. In that moment, something stirred in Cole a dormant chivalry, a spark of empathy born from his own loneliness. He couldn't turn her away, not when her eyes held such raw fear. "All right," he conceded, his voice steadying, "but we set rules. Only what's necessary. You guide me, and after. We forget this ever happened." Sira nodded gratefully, stepping inside as the door sealed behind her, enclosing them in the intimate confines of his quarters. The room was sparse a bunk, a small desk cluttered with tools, a viewport showing the endless starfield, but it felt suddenly smaller, the air thick with unspoken tension. Sira moved with graceful efficiency, despite her discomfort, sealing her stained uniform in a containment bag and wrapping herself in a spare towel from Cole's locker. Her form was elegant, alien yet alluring, with subtle curves and scales that caught the light like polished gems. She perched on a stool in the shower enclosure, a compact unit designed for human efficiency, its nozzles humming to life as Cole adjusted the settings to her specifications. Warm, not hot. Pressure firm, but gentle. "Start with the solution," she instructed, handing him a vial of Taric cleanser, her fingers brushing his briefly, sending an unexpected jolt through him. Her skin was warmer than he'd imagined, velvety under the iridescence. Cole hesitated, his hands hovering, heart pounding like the ship's engines. This was intimate, forbidden territory. But as he applied the solution to her shoulders, the foam bubbling against the contaminated patches, Syrah let out a soft sigh of relief, her skin beginning to stabilize, shifting to softer blues. "Gentle but thorough," she murmured, her voice a soothing cadence that wrapped around him. "Torek's skin is alive with sensation, touch, temperature, it all resonates deeper." He worked methodically, his fingers tracing the contours of her upper back, feeling the subtle ridges that protected her spine, each movement eliciting faint shivers from her. The air grew steamy, the scent of the cleanser mingling with something uniquely her, a faint, exotic aroma like rain on alien flora. Conversation trickled in, tentative at first. "I'm sorry for this imposition," she said, her head bowed slightly. "In Turek culture, physical care is sacred, reserved for kin or lovers. To ask a stranger," her voice trailed, laced with shame. Cole swallowed, focusing on the task, but her words ignited a curiosity. "We're both out here, away from everything familiar. Humans value space, privacy. This is new for me too." As he moved to the area between her ears, careful not to tug, she arched slightly, a gasp escaping her lips, not pain, but something else, a release that made the moment electric. Their eyes met in the foggy mirror, her violets locking onto his hazel, and in that gaze, barriers crumbled. She spoke of her world, Thaloria, where oceans sang and skies danced with colors, but isolation had driven her to the stars, seeking connection beyond her kind. Cole shared fragments of earth-crowded cities, broken hearts, the ache of unfulfilled ambition. The cleaning became a bridge, each stroke dissolving not just toxins, but walls of solitude. Time stretched, the showers hum a rhythmic backdrop to their unfolding dialogue. Syrah's skin glowed healthier now, the greens fading to a serene azure, but Cole lingered on a stubborn patch along her lower back, his touch lighter, almost caressing. She didn't protest. Instead, she leaned into it, her breath sinking with his. "You've steady hands, Cole," she whispered, a hint of playfulness piercing the tension. "For a human," he chuckled softly, the sound foreign in his own ears, warmth spreading through him. This wasn't just aid. It was communion, two souls adrift finding anchor in vulnerability. As the last of the coolant rinsed away, Syrah stood, wrapping the towel tighter, her form silhouetted against the light. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion, stepping closer than necessary. "I was terrified you'd refuse." "Judge me." "I couldn't," Cole replied, his voice husky, meeting her gaze. "Not when you needed me." The air crackled, a magnetic pull drawing them nearer, but protocol held them back. She dressed in his spare clothes, oversized on her slender frame, yet somehow endearing, and slipped out, leaving a faint shimmer on the air. Cole collapsed onto his bunk, mind reeling. What had just transpired? A simple act of mercy, or the spark of something profound? As the ship hurtled through space, he felt the first stirrings of a connection that could redefine his universe, dramatic and irresistible. The days following blurred into routine, but Syrah's presence lingered like a ghost. In the engineering bays, he'd catch glimpses of her efficient, poised, her skin now a steady blue-gray, a sign of calm. Yet, during quiet shifts, memories flooded, the feel of her skin, the intimacy of her confessions. One evening, she appeared at his station with a steaming mug of Turek brew, a gesture of gratitude. "For that night," she said, her eyes sparkling. They talked late into the cycle, sharing laughs over cultural quirks, Tarek's obsession with cleanliness versus human improvisation. 90% precision, 10% brute force, she teased, mimicking his tool handling. Cole found himself drawn to her wit, her resilience, the way her colors shifted with emotion, painting her as a living masterpiece. As weeks passed, their interactions deepened. Sierra requested a shift transfer, citing synergistic expertise, but Cole sensed more. Working side by side, diagnosing leaks and calibrating systems, their synergy was palpable, her precision complementing his strength. Whispers spread among the crew. The human and the Turek, something's brewing. Cole dismissed it, but inwardly, a flame kindled. During a particularly grueling repair, their hands brushed and time froze, her skin warming to a soft rose. A Turek blush, he'd learned. Careful, she murmured, but her eyes said otherwise. Yet drama loomed. Sierra's anxieties resurfaced, triggered by phantom scents of coolant. One night, she returned to his door, not in crisis but in quiet plea. Just a check, she said, vulnerability raw. Cole obliged, the examination a tender ritual, their proximity igniting unspoken desires. Confessions poured, his heartbreak, her cultural exile. I fled Thaloria because I craved more connections that transcend species, she admitted, her hand lingering on his arm. Cole's heart raced. This was no mere friendship. It was destiny, dramatic and all-consuming, pulling them toward an inevitable collision. In the quiet after, as stars streaked by, Cole realized the intrusion that night hadn't been an end, but a beginning, a romantic odyssey born from the stars themselves. The Meridian Dawn continued its relentless voyage through the velvet dark, engines thrumming like a distant heartbeat, carrying its fragile cargo of human and alien dreams toward an uncertain future. For Cole Thatcher, the days after that midnight cleansing had transformed into something both exquisite and torturous. Every corridor, every shared workspace, every fleeting glance carried the weight of what had passed between them. Sierra moved through the ship with her usual quiet grace, her skin now a steady, luminous sapphire that spoke of restored calm. Yet Cole could read the subtle shifts, the way rose-gold flecks appeared at her collarbones whenever their eyes met across the engineering deck, the faint shimmer that danced along her forearms when he passed close enough for their sleeves to brush. He told himself it was gratitude, nothing more. She was repaying a debt with kindness, small gestures that accumulated like stardust. A perfectly calibrated thermal regulator left on his workbench with a note in her flowing script, "For steadier hands." A cup of spiced Turek tea appearing beside his console during the graveyard shift, its warmth seeping into his palms the way her touch had that night. Each offering felt like a secret shared, a thread tying them tighter despite the protocols that demanded distance. Crew gossip had already begun to swirl good-natured ribbing from the machinists, curious sidelong looks from the navigation team, but Cole brushed it aside. He was too busy fighting the tide rising inside his chest. One cycle, during the artificial twilight that mimicked Earth's dusk, the ship's environmental systems registered a minor fluctuation in the hydroponics wing. Routine maintenance, nothing critical, yet Sierra volunteered to assist. Cole's supervisor raised an eyebrow but approved. Their combined skill sets were, after all, unmatched on this leg of the journey. They entered the vast domed chamber together, the air thick with the scent of growing things, tomatoes heavy on the vine, herbs releasing their perfume with every brush of air current, bioluminescent orchids from Sarah's homeworld, casting soft violet light across the walkways. The malfunction was trivial, a clogged nutrient line feeding the upper tiers. Cole knelt to inspect the junction while Sierra hovered above on the maintenance catwalk, directing the flow with precise adjustments to the valves. For long minutes they worked in companionable silence, the only sounds the gentle hiss of misting nozzles and the soft gurgle of recirculating water. Then her voice drifted down, quieter than the mist. Do humans ever feel exposed after allowing someone to see them vulnerable? Cole's wrench paused mid-turn. He looked up. She stood framed against the glowing canopy of leaves, one hand resting on the railing, her tail like caudal fin swaying slowly behind her, a nervous tell she rarely displayed in public. The orchids painted shifting patterns across her skin, turning the sapphire into a living galaxy. "I think most of us spend our lives trying not to be seen that way," he answered carefully. "Vulnerability feels like handing someone a loaded weapon." Sarah tilted her head, violet eyes catching the light like polished amethysts. "On Thaloria, we believe true strength lies in choosing who may hold that weapon. To bear the soul and the skin is an act of profound trust." She descended the ladder with fluid elegance, stopping one rung above him so their faces were level. "That night I gave you mine, willingly, and I have not regretted it." The words landed like a quiet detonation. Cole felt heat climb his throat. He set the wrench down, wiped his hands on his coveralls, suddenly aware of how close she stood, how the mist clung to the fine scales along her cheekbones and made them glisten. "Syrah," his voice came out rougher than intended. "What happened that night, it was necessity. I didn't expect. I didn't think it would change anything." Her lips curved, not quite a smile, more a tender acknowledgement, and yet it has. "For both of us." She reached out, fingertips hovering just above his wrist, not quite touching. "Your pulse races when I am near. I can taste it in the air, sharp, metallic, alive. Tarek senses are not kind in matters of the heart. They betray us." Cole exhaled, a shaky sound. "You're not making this easier. I do not wish to make it easy." Her voice dropped to a velvet murmur. "I wish to make it real." The nutrient line chose that moment to sputter back to life, spraying them both with a fine, cool mist. Syrah laughed, a bright, musical sound that echoed through the greenery, and the spell fractured just enough for Cole to breathe again. They finished the repair in companionable teasing, her flicking droplets at him, him retaliating by aiming the hose so a stream caught the tip of one pointed ear. She squeaked in mock outrage, the sound so startlingly human that he burst out laughing too. But when the work was done and they stood shoulder to shoulder watching the system stabilize, the levity faded. Syrah turned to him fully, expression solemn. "There is something I must tell you," she said. "Something I should have said before I crossed your threshold that night." Cole braced himself. The coolant exposure was not entirely accidental. The words hit like zero gravity. "What?" "Not sabotage," she hurried to clarify, seeing the alarm flash across his face. "But carelessness born of distraction. I had been thinking of you too much, too often. My focus slipped. The rupture happened because my mind was elsewhere." She looked away, cheeks blooming with deep rose. "I told myself it was coincidence that your quarters were closest. I told myself I had no other choice. But the truth is, I wanted to see you. I wanted your hands on me, even if the reason was pain." Silence stretched between them, fragile as spun glass. Cole felt the deck shift beneath his feet, though the artificial gravity never wavered. "You could have died," he said quietly. "If I'd turned you away." "I know." Her voice cracked on the admission. "And still I came." He stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her, to catch the faint floral ozone scent that was uniquely Syrah. "Why risk it?" "Because loneliness is a slower poison than any coolant." She lifted her gaze to his, fearless now. "And because the moment you opened that door, I knew I had not misjudged you. You saw me, not the Tarek specialist, not the exotic alien, but me. Scared, hurting, and you chose kindness over protocol. Over fear." Cole reached out, slow, giving her every chance to pull away. His palm cupped her cheek. Her skin was silken fever under his touch. She leaned into it, eyes fluttering closed for one heartbeat, two. "I don't know what this is," he admitted, thumb tracing the delicate ridge beneath her eye. "But I know I can't pretend it isn't happening." Syrah opened her eyes, and the violet depths held galaxies of longing. "Then do not pretend." They might have kissed then, might have crossed the final trembling line, but the hydroponics door chimed, announcing the arrival of the next shift. They sprang apart, breathing hard, guilt and exhilaration warring on both their faces. The arriving technician gave them a curious glance, but said nothing as they gathered their tools and left in silence. That night Cole could not sleep. He lay staring at the viewport, replaying every word, every glance, every almost touch. The enormity of what she had confessed settled over him like a second skin. She had orchestrated, however unconsciously, the crisis that brought them together. The realization should have frightened him. Instead it thrilled him, a dark romantic current pulling him under. The next morning, during the routine briefing, their eyes met across the crowded ready room. Sierra's skin shimmered with restrained gold hope, courage, desire. Cole felt an answering heat bloom in his chest. Later, in a shadowed maintenance alcove far from prying eyes, she found him. "No more accidents," she whispered, pressing close, forehead resting against his. "No more excuses. Only truth." He threaded his fingers through the silken strands at her nape, feeling the rapid flutter of her secondary pulse. "Only truth," he echoed. And then, finally, inevitably, he kissed her. It was nothing like human kisses. Her lips were softer, warmer, tasting faintly of starlit oceans and blooming night flowers. She sighed into his mouth, a sound of pure surrender, and her arms wound around his neck as though she feared he might vanish. Time dilated. The ship, the stars, the rules, all of it fell away until there was only the press of her body against his, the electric hum where their skin met, the shared breath that tasted like forever. When they parted, foreheads still touching, Sarah's voice trembled with wonder. "I have waited lifetimes to feel this." Cole smiled against her temple. "Then we have a lot of catching up to do." But even as joy surged through him, a shadow lingered at the edge of his mind. The Meridian Dawn was still months from Haven's reach. Regulations were clear: fraternization between species, carried consequences, reassignment, disciplinary action, in extreme cases, separation. And there were whispers among the senior officers, watchful eyes noting every lingering glance. Their love, so newly born, was already hunted. Yet in that shadowed alcove, with Sierra's heartbeat thundering against his chest and the taste of her still on his lips, Cole made a silent vow. "Let them try to tear us apart. We will burn brighter than any star they fear." The kiss in the shadowed alcove became the secret heartbeat of the Meridian Dawn. It pulsed beneath every routine task, every scheduled shift, every measured conversation in public spaces. Cole and Sierra learned quickly how to wear masks of professional detachment while their private world burned with stolen glances, coded phrases, and the electric memory of lips meeting in forbidden starkness. By day they were exemplary crewmates, the human engineer whose steady hands could coax life back into failing conduits, and the Tarek specialist whose precision turned chaos into harmony. Together they repaired failing scrubbers, recalibrated atmospheric mixers, mapped microfractures in the hull before they became catastrophes. Their synergy drew quiet admiration from the senior staff. Captain Reyes herself commended their unparalleled cross-species collaboration during a weekly briefing. No one suspected the truth. Every time their fingers brushed while passing a diagnostic tablet, a silent current raced between them, promising more when the lights dimmed. By night the ship became their clandestine kingdom. They chose different hiding places each cycle, mapping the vessel's forgotten corners the way lovers once mapped secret gardens on ancient Earth, the auxiliary observation deck on Deck 7. Seldom used because its viewport faced only the cold engine wake. The narrow service crawl space behind the hydroponics nutrient tanks, warm with recycled heat and fragrant with growing life. The disused stellar cartography lab on Deck 11, its star charts still glowing faintly on curved screens like forgotten constellations. In each sanctuary they rediscovered each other. One cycle, in the crawl space, Sierra pressed Cole against the warm bulkhead and kissed him with a hunger that stole his breath. Her skin shimmered through every shade of twilight rose and molten gold, colors he now understood as Tarek expressions of overwhelming desire. When he slid his hands beneath her uniform tunic, tracing the delicate ridges along her spine, She made a sound low in her throat, half growl, half plea that sent fire through his veins. "You undo me," she whispered against his mouth. "Every time you touch me, I feel pieces of myself rearranging into something new." Cole buried his face in the crook of her neck, breathing in the scent of starlit oceans and night-blooming vines. "Then let me keep undoing you," he murmured. "Let me keep finding the new pieces." They made love for the first time there, surrounded by the soft gurgle of nutrient lines and the faint bioluminescence of creeping vines. It was slow, reverent, almost aching in its tenderness. Sira guided his hands to the places where Tarek's sensation lived deepest, along the sensitive webbing between her fingers, the hollow at the base of her throat, the hidden cluster of nerve-rich scales just above the small of her back. Each discovery drew new sounds from her, new colors across her skin, until she was a living aurora beneath him, trembling and radiant. Afterward they lay entwined on the insulation matting, her head pillowed on his chest, listening to the dual rhythm of his heart and the ship's engines. She traced idle patterns on his skin with one fingertip, leaving trails of faint luminescence that faded slowly. "On Thaloria," she said quietly, "when two souls choose each other completely, they perform the Calveth, the binding of light. They stand together under the auroral sky and allow their bioluminescence to merge, creating a third color that belongs only to them." Her voice caught. "I never thought I would want that with anyone. Now I ache for it with you." Cole pressed a kiss to her temple. "Then we'll make our own version. Here, among the stars that don't care about rules or species." She lifted her head, violet eyes searching his. "You would do that? Bind yourself to someone not of your world." "I already have," he answered simply. For a few precious weeks they lived in that fragile bubble of joy. They learned each other's languages of love, the way Sira's ears flattened when she was shy, the precise pressure Cole needed at the base of his skull to melt tension, how her laughter sounded different when it was only for him, brighter, unguarded. They spoke of impossible futures, settling together on Haven's Reach, building a home where human stubbornness and Tarek elegance could coexist, raising hybrid children who would inherit both stubborn hearts and living rainbows beneath their skin. But shadows were gathering. It began with small things. A security ensign who lingered too long when delivering reports to the engineering deck. A sudden unscheduled inspection of the service crawl spaces. Lieutenant Commander Hale, the ship's strict executive officer, developing an inconvenient habit of walking the same corridors at the same hours Cole and Sira used for their rendezvous. Then came the summons. Captain Reyes requested their presence in her ready room at 0800 hours ship time. No explanation given. They arrived together, protocol allowed it, since they were frequently assigned as a team. But the moment they stepped through the hatch, Cole felt ice slide down his spine. Reyes sat behind her desk, posture rigid. Hale stood at her shoulder like a sentinel. A data tablet rested between them, screen dark but ominous. "Sit," Reyes said. Not a request. They sat. Sira's tail fin curled tightly around the leg of her chair, a defensive posture Cole had come to recognize. Reyes activated the tablet. Security footage began to play. Grainy, time-stamped images from hidden corridor cams. The two of them slipping into the stellar cartography lab. Another angle showing them emerging 94 minutes later, hair mussed, uniforms slightly askew. A third clip more damning from the auxiliary observation deck. A single, unmistakable silhouette of two figures pressed together against the viewport, kissing with desperate tenderness. Silence fell like a guillotine. "Regulation 17.4, Hale recited tonelessly. "Fraternization between crew members of differing species is prohibited due to potential conflicts of interest, psychological incompatibility, and risk to ship cohesion." Cole felt Sira's hand find his beneath the table, squeezing once hard, steadying. "We're not endangering the ship," he said, keeping his voice level. "If anything, our relationship has improved our performance." "You've said so yourself, Captain." Reyes's expression remained unreadable. "Performance is not the issue. Trust is." The crew must believe command is impartial. When exceptions are made for personal attachments, discipline erodes. Sarah spoke then, voice soft but carrying the weight of centuries of Terek formality. Captain, with respect, your regulation assumes incompatibility. It does not account for compatibility proven through action. Cole and I have faced crisis together, worked in perfect synchrony, supported one another through isolation and danger. Is that not the very cohesion you seek to protect? Holly opened his mouth, but Reyes raised a hand. I am not unsympathetic, she said quietly. I have watched the two of you. I have seen how you light up around each other in ways most crew never achieve in entire careers. But I am also bound by oath and directive. EarthGov and the Tarek Concordance both signed the non-intermingling accord after the Proxima incident. Violations carry mandatory reassignment, at minimum, at maximum. She let the sentence hang. Cole's stomach dropped. Separation. Reyes nodded once. One of you would be transferred to another vessel at the next resupply point. The other would remain aboard until Haven's reach. The room seemed to shrink. Sierra's grip on his hand became almost painful. How long do we have? Cole asked, throat tight. 4 standard weeks until we reach Relay Station Epsilon. You will be confined to separate quarters and separate shifts effective immediately. No contact outside essential duties. Any violation will accelerate reassignment. Sarah made a small wounded sound barely audible, but it tore through Cole like shrapnel. Reyes leaned forward, voice softening fractionally. I am sorry, truly. If the regulations allowed discretion, I would grant it. But they do not. The meeting ended. They were escorted to their quarters under guard. That night, alone in his bunk for the first time in weeks, Cole stared at the ceiling and felt something fracture inside his chest. He thought of Sierra one deck away, probably curled on her own bed, skin flickering through anxious shades of charcoal and bruised violet. He thought of the life they had begun to imagine together, now dangling by the thin thread of 4 weeks. He rose, crossed to the desk, and activated his personal terminal. Regulations prohibited private messages between restricted parties, but there were ways-old engineering backdoors, ghost relays through non-critical systems. His fingers flew across the keys. 4 words. Simple. True. I am not letting go. He sent it into the silent arteries of the ship, praying the message would find her before the firewalls closed. Minutes passed. Then the terminal chimed soft, secret. Her reply glowed on the screen, written in the curling Tarek script he had begun to learn. Neither am I, my heart. We fight for every stolen second until the stars themselves must choose. Outside the viewport, the galaxy continued its indifferent turning, beautiful and merciless. Inside the ship, 2 souls prepared for war. The final 4 weeks became a crucible. Confined to separate shifts, separate decks, separate lives, Cole and Sierra turned silence into strategy. They communicated through the ghost relays. Cole had rigged brief, encrypted bursts of text that flickered across auxiliary maintenance logs like coded stars. Each message was a lifeline. Deck 9, Junction 47B0300 30 seconds. Just to see your eyes. Today your absence feels like missing gravity. Hold on. I dreamed of Thaloria last night. You were there, wearing human sunlight on your skin. They risked everything for stolen moments. A brush of fingers during an emergency drill when the entire crew crammed into the same corridor. A whispered, I love you, mouthed across the mess hall when no one was looking. Once, during a hull integrity inspection, they found themselves alone for 97 glorious seconds in an airlock antechamber. Sierra pressed her forehead to his, skin flaring rose gold, so bright it lit the dim space like dawn. They did not speak. They simply breathed the same air, hearts hammering in unison, until the warning chime forced them apart. But time was merciless. With 3 days left until Relay Station Epsilon, Captain Reyes summoned them both together, this time to the observation lounge on Deck 1. No guards. Just the 3 of them and the endless black beyond the panoramic viewport. Rhea stood with her back to the stars, arms folded. "I have received the final transfer orders," she said without preamble. "Sira, you will board the courier vessel Calypso at Epsilon. It departs for the Tarek Concordance border within 12 hours of docking. Cole, you will remain aboard Meridian Dawn until Haven's Reach." The words landed like physical blows. Sira's skin flickered once charcoal, violet, then settled into a deep, wounded indigo. Cole felt something tear inside his chest, clean and brutal. Reyes continued, voice quieter. "I fought the reassignment. I submitted a formal appeal citing exceptional performance synergy, psychological stability data, even preceding from the Vega liaison case. EarthGov denied it within 40 minutes. The accord is ironclad." Cole stepped forward. "Then we refuse. We go AWOL together. Find a fringe colony, disappear." Reyes met his gaze without flinching. "You would throw away your careers, your citizenship, any chance of legal protection, for a love the galaxy has decided cannot exist." "Yes," they answered in perfect unison. For the first time, Reyes smiled small, sad, almost proud. "I thought you might say that." She tapped her wristcom. A holographic manifest appeared between them. "There is another option. One I am not supposed to know exists," she explained. A shadow courier, the Nightingale, was scheduled to dock at Epsilon under false registry. It carried no official manifest, answered to no government, and made regular runs to uncharted sectors beyond the Accord's reach, places where species mixed freely, where love did not require permission. The captain owed Reyes a very old debt from a long-ago rescue on Proxima B. One message from her, and 2 berths would open. "But if you take it," Reyes warned, "you vanish. No records, no coming back. EarthGov will list you as deserters. The Concordance will do the same to Sira. You will be ghosts." Cole looked at Sira. Her eyes were bright, terrified, alive. "We were already ghosts," she said softly. "Until we found each other," Reyes exhaled. "Then go to Bay 4 at 0200 tomorrow cycle. Nightingale will be there, disguised as a supply drone. I'll make sure security logs show routine maintenance. After that, I never saw you again." She turned away, staring at the stars. Dismissed, they left the lounge in silence, hearts pounding. That night they met one final time in the place where everything began, Cole's quarters. No coolant, no emergency. Just them. Sira wore nothing but one of his old shirts, sleeves rolled to her elbows, the fabric falling soft against her glowing skin. Cole pulled her close, kissed her slow and deep, tasting salt and starlight. "I need to ask you something," he whispered against her lips. She tilted her head, curious. "The Kelveth," he said. "The binding of light. You said it creates a third color. Something only the 2 of you share." Her breath caught. "Yes, I want that. Before we leave. Before anything else can take us apart." Sira searched his face for a long moment. Then she smiled, radiant, trembling, and led into the viewport. They stood together facing the endless dark. She placed one palm flat against the polycarbon, the other against his chest over his heart. Cole mirrored her, hand on the glass, hand on her heart. "Close your eyes," she murmured. "Feel me, only me." He did. At first there was only warmth, her skin against his, the faint vibration of the ship, the rhythm of their breathing. Then something shifted. Light bloomed beneath their joined hands. Sira's bioluminescence rose like tidewater, soft blues and violets swirling up her arm, across her shoulders, into her face. Cole felt heat flare in his own chest, not pain, but recognition. Impossible. Human skin should not glow, yet it did faint at first, then stronger. Golden threads weaving through his veins, answering her call. Their lights met at the place where palm pressed palm. A new color was born. It was neither hers nor his. It was amber kissed with starfire, warm rose at the edges, deep indigo at the heart, a color that pulsed like a living heartbeat, impossible on any spectrum either of their species had ever known. Sira laughed through tears. "Look," she breathed. "Our color. They stood like that until the glow slowly faded, leaving only memory and the faintest shimmer on their skin, a permanent mark no scanner would ever explain. At 0200, they slipped into Bay 4. The Nightingale waited, small and sleek and utterly unremarkable. A hatch opened without signal. A voice low, amused, came through the cum. Reyes said you two were worth the trouble. Get in before someone changes their mind. They stepped aboard. As the courier detached and slipped into the black, Cole pulled Sierra against him in the tiny cabin. Through the narrow viewport, they watched Meridian Dawn grow smaller, then vanish among the stars. Sierra rested her head on his shoulder. No regrets? None, he said, kissing her temple. We're free. We're together, and we carry our own light now. She lifted her hand. In the dim cabin, their palms still held the faintest echo of amber rose indigo. Wherever we go, she whispered, we bring our own dawn. Years later, on a green moon circling a gentle yellow star, in a house built of living crystal and salvaged hull plates, two children would chase each other through bioluminescent gardens. One would have Cole's stubborn jaw and Sarah's pointed ears. The other would shimmer with colors no medical text could name. And every night, when the sky filled with auroras not of Thaloria but of their own making, Cole and Sarah would stand together at the edge of their world, palms joined, watching their private color dance across the heavens. They had not bent the galaxy to their will. They had simply refused to let it bend them. And in the end, that was enough.
Es que hagan de cuenta que en estos casos ya le saben, güey, ya le saben. Sí se mamaron. Vente. No te escucho nada. Voy. Voy. Gracias. Listo, se ve. Nos encerraron la nave. Valió verga, güey.